going to cover two expansions today, the Volcarren Wasteland, which added molten lava and lava field terrain, and the Thaelenk Tundra, which added glaciers, ice, and snow. There's not too many rules for these, that's why they're combined in the same video. Now for lava, we're going to need somebody to demonstrate the effects of it, because I believe he's going to die. Perfect. Eldgrim, the Viking champion, is going to demonstrate how lava field tiles work, as well as molten lava tiles. And the Obsidian Guard is going to be an example of why paying attention and being vigilant with your card's special abilities throughout the game is important. The first example will be building with lava field tiles. Lava field tiles come in single hex, double hex, and 7 hex tiles as of this expansion, and you can link them and stack them the same way as any other tile to create a lava field space for your battlefield. Rules for the basic game concerning lava field tiles is that there are actually no special rules for moving onto or through lava field spaces. Rules for the master game are pretty much the same, but only with a minor difference. The rules for the master game are that there are no special rules for moving onto or through lava field spaces. However, at the end of the round, all figures still on lava field spaces must roll to see if they take lava field damage. So we'll use some examples here. First, Eldgrim, he's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, because you count the sides, 5. So he moves up there. And then we'll say Grimneck 1, 2, and stops there. So, double space figures with 1 space on a lava field must still roll for lava field damage. Double space figures that occupy 2 lava field spaces roll only once for lava field damage. So if Grimneck had moved here instead, he would still only roll once for lava field damage. Let's see how it goes. Here's rolling for lava field damage. In turn order, all players must roll for all of their figures on lava field spaces. To do this, roll 1 attack die. If you roll a skull, that figure takes a wound. Otherwise, it is safe. Players may choose in what order to roll for their own figures. So, we'll go Grimneck first. He's fine. And then Eldgrim is also fine. And now we're going to go over for building with molten lava tiles and the rules for molten lava tiles. So, with a molten lava tile, you can link them and stack them on any non-water, non-molten lava tiles to create molten lava spaces on your battlefield. You cannot place glyphs on molten lava tiles. For the basic rules game, figures may not move onto molten lava spaces. Rules for the master game are a little different. Treat molten lava spaces like you would water spaces, which means a figure entering a water space has to end their movement on a water space. And popping back to Grimneck here for a moment, remember that a double-spaced figure may move over a single hex to the safety of land on the other side as if it was water, which would be 1, 2 for the side, 3, 4. Eldgrim will not make that run. So, treating it like water, we'll say Eldgrim chooses to move in to the molten lava space. He immediately stops because it is treated as water, and when a figure moves onto a molten lava space, you must roll for molten lava damage. Going back to double space figures for a second, when a double space figure stops in 1 or 2 molten lava spaces, it must only roll once for molten lava damage. Grimneck, being a double space figure and this being uneven, would not legally be able to stop here. However, if Grimneck was to move like that, yeah, he would stop and he'd roll for molten lava damage. But I like Grimneck, so he's not going to roll. Let's see how Eldgrim does. This is rolling for molten lava damage. Roll a 20-sided die. If you roll a 20, your figure has miraculously survived. If you roll a 1 to 19, your figure is destroyed. And special for flying, figures with the special power flying may fly over molten lava without rolling for molten lava damage. Your moment of truth, Eldgrim. Well, he is a Viking champion after all. Man. This Obsidian Guard is going to be the gentle reminder of the "you snooze, you lose" rule in Heroscape. If you do not remember one of your figure's abilities or powers, then better luck next time, as the rulebook says. And with these amounts of characters out in the game now, 13 waves of figures, and more coming in 2024 when Renegade Game Studios relaunches Heroscape, there's going to be a lot of remembering. So, let's take a look at the Obsidian Guard. It is lava resistant. Obsidian Guards never roll for molten lava damage or lava field damage, and they do not have to stop on molten lava spaces. And lava throw, when an Obsidian Guard is on a molten lava space, it may add 2 to its range. And water weakness, as an Obsidian Guard on a water space rolls 2 fewer defense dice. As Obsidian Guard, and Obsidian Guard. And those are the rules for lava field tiles and molten lava tiles as introduced in the Volcarren Wasteland expansion set. One little reminder is, if you have these from the year they came out, be careful taking these things apart, because they literally will just turn into dust if mishandled. Not really a rule, but yeah, they don't exactly make these anymore as of now. The Thaelenk Tundra expansion was the first to add ice tiles, snow tiles, and glacier mountains and glacier bases, which are basically just ice tiles with peg holes. So, we'll go over the rules here. First up is ice tiles. Now, building with ice tiles, you can link them and stack them the same way you would link and stack water tiles. Ice tiles cannot be stacked on water and other ice tiles, or other tiles that are considered to have no height. Rules for the basic game: figures may move on to ice tiles by counting each hex as 1 space. Ice tiles do not add height, do not count ice tiles when moving up or down. Rules for the master game, slightly different. Figures may move on to ice tiles by counting each hex according to the type of ice specified in the scenario beforehand. Ice tiles do not add height when counting levels, do not count for height when moving up or falling down. There are 2 different types of ice tiles that may be specified for any scenario. Both are explained here. Normal ice, which is the most common use of the game, move on to normal ice counting each hex as 1 space. 1, 2, 3, counting the side, 4. Alright. And then we have a variation called slippery ice. Move on slippery ice counting each hex as 2 spaces. Figures may fly or leap over slippery ice, counting each hex as 1 space. Double space figures may move onto slippery ice using the lead end of their base to count 2 spaces. So, we'll use our old pal Grimnack here for this. So, the lead base being here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and he would stop there. Landing on slippery ice. A single-spaced figure that lands on slippery ice, from flying, leaping, falling, dropping, etc., must count the landing as 2 spaces. Double-spaced figures also only count the landing as 2 spaces, whether the landing is on 1 slippery ice tile or 2. Since counting spaces as 2 when falling was mentioned, we'll take an example look at that. The height of the Dzu-Teh is medium 6. This is higher than 6, so moving off of there would cause a fall damage roll. So first we'll move him off at 1, 2, considering that that could be slippery ice. And he lives, so he may continue his movement normally. And he has a movement of 5, so 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll notice, as the rules explained, falling was part of the movement in counting 2 spaces. That means that falling onto ice or slippery ice is different. So again, falling onto an ice tile, unlike a water tile, figures that fall onto an ice tile may receive wounds. Falling, as a quick reminder of explained in the master set rules, is if a figure falls onto a water tile from any height, they do not roll for fall damage. If a figure falls onto a tile from higher than its height, it rolls for fall damage. If a figure falls onto a tile from 10 levels higher than its height, it rolls 2 dice for fall damage. And if a figure falls more than 20 levels higher than its height, it'll take a d20 roll, being destroyed on anything but a 19 or 20. Alright, let's take a look at snow tiles next, right here. And before I go over the rules for snow tiles, The way I got mine so white again, because these tend to yellow with age, is I got a cookie sheet and filled it with peroxide, which only cost me a few dollars, and I put the tiles face up, put saran wrap over that, made sure to get peroxide on the surface of them, and left them out in the sun. There are much more complicated and complex ways of doing that, but this was a cheap and quick result for my tiles. Some of them have some minor yellow spots around the edges and stuff, but I didn't have to spend as much money and they look just fine to me. So hope that tip can help somebody out who has some tiles that they just want to re-whiten. But let's get into it. Building with snow tiles. You can link and stack them the same way you link and stack other terrain tiles such as grass, sand, rock, etc. Snow tiles cannot be stacked on water, ice, or other tiles that are considered to have no height. Rules for the basic game on snow tiles are pretty much the rules for anything in the basic game. There are no special rules for moving onto or through snow tiles. Rules for the master game. Figures may move onto snow tiles by counting each hex according to the type of snow specified in the scenario. Normal rules for counting levels applies to all snow type tiles. There are two different types of snow tiles that may be specified for a scenario. Both are explained below. Light snow. There are no special rules for moving onto or through snow tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we're going to say that that is not slippery ice. Anyway, heavy snow. Move onto heavy snow, counting each hex as 2 spaces. Figures may fly or leap over heavy snow, counting each hex as 1 space. Double space figures may move on heavy snow using the lead end of the base to count 2 spaces. Landing on heavy snow. A single space figure that lands on heavy snow, from flying, leaping, falling, dropping, etc., must count the landing as 2 spaces. Double space figures may also count the landing as 2 spaces, whether landing is in 1 heavy snow space or 2. So, we'll say Memring was flying along and lands there. That's going to be 2 spaces of his movement. Because when you're landing from flight, you have to obey the rules for heavy snow. Glacier mountains and glacier bases, they come on, again, big holes. There's various sizes. This set actually introduced a 6 hex, a 4 hex, a 3 hex, and several 1 hex glacier pieces. Glacier mountains and glacier bases are just obstacles that block line of sight and other stuff. But building with glacier mountains with bases may be stacked onto terrain such as grass, rock, sand, etc. Do not stack them on terrain such as water, ice, or other terrain that is considered to have no height. Building with glacier bases. Glacier bases may be used alone without a glacier mountain to represent ice spaces. Glacier bases cannot be stacked on water, ice, or tiles that are considered to have no height. Rules for the basic game. Figures may not land on or move through glacier mountains. If glacier bases are used as ice tiles, follow the rules for the basic game on ice tiles, which is, there are no special rules for moving onto or through them. The master game rules are pretty similar to the basic game rules in this instance. However, there's just some minor wording differences. Rules for the master game on glacier mountains are that they are towers of ice that block normal movement and line of sight. Figures may not land on or move through glacier mountains. If glacier bases are used as ice tiles, then follow the rules for the ice that you set for the scenario that you're playing, which would be normal ice or slippery ice. And again, a reminder to pay attention to the unit's abilities that you choose for whatever battle you're playing, such as this Dzu-Teh warrior, which has Glacier Traverse. If a Dzu-Teh is adjacent to a glacier mountain, the Dzu-Teh may Glacier Traverse instead of moving normally. You may do this with any or all Dzu-Teh you control each turn. To Glacier Traverse, move to any unoccupied space adjacent to that glacier mountain. So this dude's going to Glacier Traverse, and there he is. And I just caught myself, because going over the rules for slippery ice and deep snow, I forgot they have snow and ice enhanced movement. Slippery ice and heavy snow only count as 1 space when moving. So you've been a poor example, because you could have been moving normally. Or am I a poor example, because I was explaining rules and not going back to the basics, which is pay attention to your army cards. There you have some additional terrain rules to expand your Heroscape games even further.